Hello, everybody. This is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, 107.7 and 105.3. Also on Roku, X, YouTube, Facebook, and other internet platforms around the world, and also on the uprntalkradio.com site. So you can hear us live, but you can also hear us in recordings. And wow, it's just beautiful to be here today. And we have Tina Kinney Clarke, and I'm going to bring her on right now. Hey, Tina.
Hey Bart, how are you?
All right, all right. It's good to see you again.
Good to see
Tina,
you.
Tina, Tina and I have had, God, we've been Facebook friends forever, but also watching each other's careers grow and develop. Tina is the author of Into the Tree Journey, Into the Spirit World, and another book, Holistic Mental Health. And so she is a journeyer. She's a healer. She's a Reiki healer, and also co-leads a Egyptian tours, which you have one in September 2025. And you know, maybe you already give me your what you consider your job description there of
Uh,
what it's like to do this.
well, my title that I choose at the moment is Shamanic Reiki Master Teacher. So I combine shamanic healing with Reiki and, of course, other energy healing modalities that I've been trained in. And I've been doing this for 10 years, 11 years.
Wow. Well, I think you have a natural gift. It's because we were in France together, and you led so much about perceiving, and also you and others in the group had this fascination with cleansing the churches instead of you go into the church and saying, well, what does this church have to offer to me? It's more like, oh, we feel the energy, we see these things in the church, and we also see that it could be more, and so let's get to work, girls. And off you would go, you know doing service work as well as receiving work at the same time. So
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it is that you gave us as much time as we needed at each location. So it was wonderful to take our time and feel the energy of the place, understand the energy of that place, and then decide together whether if we needed to do anything there to help the energy in that sacred location.
yeah, and I think that's part of the process. It's an intimacy that you have with sacred sites, that you go deeply into them. Uh, it's not just about, oh, well, what can I receive this? What type of expansion can I receive? That's part of it, but there's an exploration within worlds, other worlds. And for you in Egypt, we're talking about into the cosmos, into the star systems as
Yes,
well.
it's galactic. Definitely a lot of galactic energy. And I think in France was really, I was working with sites locally where I lived in Virginia, but France is where I really started understanding what I could do in sacred sites and what the purpose of them were. And after the France trip, I also started visiting other sites around the world and doing the same kind of work. But I
Yeah,
always approach it very gingerly, especially if I'm new to the location. You always, and you do this too, Bart. You kind of enter it and become curious. And then you just kind of take some time to walk around, sit down, feel the energy, and then I connect with the guardian spirit of the place. And then you can start asking questions like,
Your voice is a little garbled.
okay,
Can you speak maybe a little louder,
yep, yep.
or it's a kind of a funky interconnect connection, which will happen sooner. Ah,
Can you hear me better now?
oh yeah. Mm.
I'll be one of those like social media videos where they're always holding up the microphone to their mouth.
Well, it's working. You're really clear and crisp.
Okay.
Uh, Yeah, yeah. So it, maybe did these skills come like naturally to you? I mean, where did you begin this journey? Because you are a highly intuitive person, shamanic work, Reiki, uh, but to make somebody to have that title of doing Reiki and being a Reiki master, you have to have something beyond that. I mean, in my opinion, it's that it's one tool that adds to other tools.
Right. Well, in Reiki, you can send healing energy to the land. You can send healing energy to anything. And so when I got Reiki trained, I was practicing my skills on myself and others. And then I just broadened it to, what does Earth need? What does this location need? What does this tree need? So I don't know, it came naturally. And I know that I've had past lives as a land healer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not my first rodeo. And I'm one of those people that I like to think and do take action on broad terms. So, if I need to send healing energy to the entire planet, I will.
Yeah, it's being that big. And one thing that you haven't mentioned, but I suspect is part of your process, so I'll just get out there and say it, is that you have a very close connection or communication with your body. It's not a little voice that's talking outside of you, but it's embodiment. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I've been working with uh, energy for a while now, and I realize my body is very much like a pendulum, and that it will alert me to things that are happening, either as a reaction to someone or a place or something that I'm feeling.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it serves you, I'm sure, even more than just doing sacred sites and healing work. It's your second brain, so to speak.
Yeah, and sometimes it's literally a pain.
Well, the mind wants to get everything in a nice, neat package, make it efficient, you know, or be totally over intrigued with an ideal and concept, which we call obsession sometimes. And the body, it's more of an organic reality that is unpredictable. You
Yeah,
follow.
I think we can suppress a lot of things. We can try to suppress our thoughts, emotions, but the body will tell you. Like you can't suppress, you could try to suppress your body, but the body will come through and tell you, pay attention to this, listen to, feel this. And then the intensity of that will increase as long as you are ignoring it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always these questions. Now, when you go to sacred sites, does it seem like the sites almost make a demand on your body to perceive more than you ever did before?
Sometimes the sites heal me. So I noticed when I went on a tour of Mexico sites, I had a lower back pain, and I was at Teotihuacan, and I remember walking down the Avenue of the Dead, and my whole lower back was tingling. And I thought to myself, what is happening right now? But I was also excited.
Mm,
And then I walked from the Pyramid of the Moon to the Pyramid of the Sun, and then I climbed the Pyramid of the Sun, and then I descended, and my back pain was gone for the rest of the trip.
wow.
So Teotihuacan is one of those places where you could feel that many, many shamans are working on that place. Because
Mm,
when I walked in there, I said, there is absolutely nothing I need to do here.
wow. So when you run into something like that, there's I guess the miraculous, I've been shown something phenomenal type of thing, and there might be lessons with that. There might be other things. Um, Anything like that come up for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can go to Egypt. So I visited Egypt in April for the first time. I had people ask me, why do you even want to go there? To me, that was a crazy question. I said, why wouldn't you want to go to Egypt? Why wouldn't you want to see these temples on the Nile that are so old? We can't even put a number on how old these places are. They try, but they're underestimating. And so I don't know. As a kid, I looked at those pyramids in the pictures and I said, I want to go there. And
Yeah.
then when I started my shamanic journeying, a lot of times I did go to Egypt in my journeys. And Isis is one of my guides, and she's been with me for 11 years now. And I know I've had many lives as a priest or a priestess in Egypt. And so it was time to go. And I was feeling the pressure, Bart. I don't know if you feel like pressure from spirit when they want you to do something.
I feel it. I ask questions, and something expands in me so big, and then the obsession sets in where I
Mm.
can't get it out of my mind.
It just felt like a pressure. And I was still, I do shamanic journeys pretty regularly, and Sekhmet's showing up, and Isis is showing up, and I'm feeling okay, okay, I'm gonna go. So I really felt like I had to go as soon as possible last year.
Mm. So I had to ask the question. It's almost like a chicken or egg question. Do you think that Isis and Sekhmet are coming to you, or is it something inside of you that is, you know, just coming alive and showing you the information, internal or external, as they say?
Probably both at the same time. And these beings show up because you're ready for their guidance. And so Sekhmet is fairly recent for me, as with Isis, it's been with me for a long time. And so, yes, I get curious about why is Sekhmet showing up right now? What it is about Sekhmet that, she's taking an interest in me now.
Now, I'm not all familiar with all the gods and goddesses, but Sekhmet is kind of the one that is very truthful but can be very destructive and almost has a rep of being satanic, but that's so far from the truth. Am I getting that one right?
Yeah, the traditional stories of her as she became destructive and was going to punish, quote unquote, humanity for their sins. And then they got her drunk,
Uh-oh.
and then she passed out and wasn't able to destroy like she did. But who knows what the truth is? I know Sekhmet as a healer, and she is a lioness, and she's very strong. And yeah, there's a
Hmm.
wonderful Sekhmet statue at the Karnak temple that is amazing. And she's been sitting in this small cubicle room for thousands of years, in the dark mostly, because there's only like a square little light above her, hole above her. And Bart, I walked into that room and I was like swooning from the energy of it. And I know you understand this because in different sites in France, you can
Yes.
feel the energy, usually around the altar of these churches. And I just couldn't believe how powerful the energy was in that room.
And so much about France is ley lines connected to sources within the earth. There is energy sometimes from the heavens, but mostly it's in a connection with a cosmic world within the earth, and the cosmos comes up through the earth. There's a few sites that have a different application, but there's been two things I've read about Egypt with these sites, and I'm not saying they're not connected to the earth, but one of them is that the statues themselves are still alive with God and Goddess, and B, that you are getting a streamline from places like Sirius and Sirius B, that there's a direct connection to the cosmos, to the star systems. Any thoughts on what you think about that?
Most definitely. I mean, I spent 2 hours in the Great Pyramid going into the chambers and spending time in there. And there is the King's Chamber, which is that upper chamber. And I was with a small group of women, and who are all very spiritual in their own right and connected. And we asked our tour guides and the security guards, shut off all the lights. We want to sing and chant in the King's Chamber.
Which is illegal, by the way, but that's another
Is it?
story. That's what I've been told.
A lot of people have done it.
Yeah, but it's like if your tour guide or they of course pay for that privilege.
Yeah. Oh, we paid. We
This
paid
is
a lot of money to get in there.
this is why you have to have a tour guide that knows the guards and has relationships with them, because they get you into the better places,
Mhm.
and then you're an activator of the energies
Right.
as
And
well. So I'm
it's
interrupting
who
you with your story.
it's who you know in Egypt. So if you know someone who's connected, that's the only way you will be able to book something like that. So
Mm,
luckily, one of the women in my group had been to Egypt 5 times. So
wow.
she had a lot of connections. But back to the galactic, I spent, we were able to lay down in the sarcophagus, that open sarcophagus, and in the dark. And
Mm.
Bart, I went straight to the void. It was amazing.
Is this the sarcophagus that kind of fits people's bodies? I've heard about this, or is it something else?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's an open lidded, they would call it a sarcophagus because they don't have a better word for it. But it's a large granite box, open box that you can lay in the king's chamber.
oh my God. Tell me about the void. I mean, we all have our definitions of that word. What was your
So
experience?
to me, the void is where creator is, but there's nothing there. It's just creator energy and a darkness. But the darkness feels like a womb, like a safe place to be. And so when I was in that sarcophagus, all the walls disappeared and fell away. And I think the Great Pyramid's directly connected to Orion and Sirius.
Oh, wow.
So they have these little tunnels that are one's pointing directly to Sirius and the other to Orion. And that's because Osiris is from um,
Orion.
Orion and Isis is from Sirius.
Wow, I didn't know that. A mixed marriage.
Hmm. And I don't believe they were brother and sister.
No, that would not be any fun at all.
That's just a story. So these temples, they were on the in Egypt were built obviously like the churches and the pagan sites before that because they were sacred sites, sacred areas. These are on the ley lines. And so I believe in the past, initiates would spend time at each of these temples and they would spend months and years there. And, you start in Aswan in the southern part of Egypt where the root chakra is, and you work your way up the Nile through all the 7 chakras till you get to Saqqara up in the north. So when I visited in April, here I am spending hours at each temple, not days, not months like the initiates of the past.
Yes.
But I did have a huge root chakra release at the very beginning of our trip. So what happened is um, my roommate and I were not getting along in the beginning of the trip. And she said something that triggered me. And I always view triggers as opportunities to heal something. There's a reason why I get triggered. And I don't get triggered often, Bart. It's very rare. So I was exploring this and I was mad at her, of course, which she really was the teacher and the messenger. That's it. And we went to the unfinished obelisk. So this area is where they have a huge obelisk in the ground that they started carving, but they never finished. So they say because it got cracked. And so they just left it there in the quarry. And I had my little meltdown and I was mad at her and she was trying to talk to me. So I left the group and I went to the exit area of the unfinished obelisk place where all the
Mhm.
vendors are. So then all the vendors are trying to sell me stuff and I'm crying. I'm like, that was not a good time. And then one of the women in my group came to me and she said, Tina, I want to let you know that she was the leader of our group. She said, I've been here so many times and I thought that there were so many emotions that I had healed, but they're coming up for me right now. And when she said that, I could just feel everything calm down because she said that, because I felt like, oh, I'm not alone,
Mm.
right? And then my roommate came and hugged me, and I started just feeling just all this energy leaving me, that I was holding on to.
And this would be something of a primitive emotion like anger or shame or
Right.
fear, something of that nature.
I think victimhood.
Mm.
I think what I released was feeling like a victim. And then, my wonderful little tour guide, he just stood next to me and handed me a tissue and said nothing. So everybody was so wonderful, and I felt all this victimhood leave me. And then they have this little, I forget what they call it, but um, it's like a bicycle with a roof on it. It's like a
Okay.
taxi.
Right, right.
So this little taxi pulls up, and guess what it says on the front? They name it sometimes. It says Jesus. And then one of the women in our group said, look, Jesus just showed up and told us to get our acts together. And we
Mm.
had all a really good laugh about that.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like this isn't about just sucking it up, and going, well, let's repress this deep emotion, but something released, and then you have a choice whether you want to create something new or go back to your old behavior that's familiar, because it sounds like this is like past life upon past life type of thing.
It was huge,
You know, a
huge. And
big,
I will tell you, Bart, I'm not a crier and I couldn't stop crying. So after this, I felt like a different person. And when you feel renewed like a different person, you released something.
yeah.
Like I don't even know how it happened. It just happened. And then the group supported me in the most perfect ways.
But that's kind of when you're at something that goes down into the first chakra and pulls you into it, and you're ready to release something unconsciously. This is all unconsciously happening. Something so repressed that is you've done it for lifetimes, and you contorted yourself through lifetimes to work around the victim mode, be stronger than the victim, or be more of the victim, or various roles. But there's a wound that is so deep that sometimes to be in a grounded place like that goes right to the source of it.
Yeah, and
And
it's something that I couldn't run away from or I couldn't quit. Like I couldn't say, "Hey, I'm done with this group and I'm leaving." We just started, you know. So I had to face it, but it was really beautiful and it was very quick. I mean, it was intense but very quick. And I think this is what the temples do for you. So I visited Abu Simbel and the Temple of Isis, who are all around the root chakra. And it stirred something in me and it stirred something in our group. And throughout the trip, everybody had their moment like I did. Like I was good for the rest of the trip, I think. But everybody had their different moments at different temples, and we just rallied around each other to support each other.
that's the beauty about having leaders that are very open to seeing the deepest fears and limitations of themselves, because they're a clear channel, or they're a clearer channel, and it opens the can of worms for everybody,
Hmm.
because tour leaders and tour guides, or shamans, or priests, priestesses, whatever you want to call them, that's part of the process. If you want to find a leader, one of the questions you might want to ask is, how much interior work have they done to resolve their issues? They could be really talented in different areas of healing arts or various things, but sometimes they've not done that work. And to me, it's very essential. Even when you look at somebody like Yeshua or Magdalene, they probably did a lot of their own limit releasings. It's
Oh, yeah.
interesting you said release, and I wanted to clarify, is that a release or an activation? But clearly it's a release.
It felt like a release. Now, I had another moment that felt like an activation.
Mm.
So, I was at the Isis temple for the third and last time. Believe it or not, we visited 3 times. And I connected with Isis and I said, "Do I really need to visit this temple a third time?" And she said, "Yes, because you have not spent time in the Hathor temple, which is a separate structure. You haven't gone in there." And I said, "Okay, when Isis tells you to do something, you do it." So we had 15 minutes left at this place. So I rushed over there and sat with my back against the column, alone, of course. No one was there. And I connected, and Hathor came forward and she said, "This is the beginning of your advanced training." And then I felt all this energy just come down through my crown and into my body. And I said, "Okay, let's do it." Then I got up and joined the group. So that to me was an activation. It was a
It,
message, get ready for the next chapter of your life.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. It's like, word I would say is a new beginning.
Hmm.
Yes.
So this is the beauty of visiting these places. You don't know, you can't know every lifetime you've had. You don't have the memories, but if you go there, you may remember.
Mhm. And
You
and it may not be important. It may not be like the download you just received.
right.
Uh, it's it doesn't have a lot of details to it, and at the same time, you know it's very important.
So this is a great place to heal, to activate yourself, to connect with your multidimensional self, to your galactic ancestors. Our galactic ancestors built these places.
Let's go on to that one, but before you say anything, I want to tell everybody that you're listening to Tina Kinney Clarke at TinaKinneyClarke.com, and it's a tricky name, Tina, and then Kinney, Kinney, Clarke, Clarke, TinaKinneyClarke.com, author of Into the Tree Journey, Into the Spirit World. Also is a co-leader of Egyptian tours, which you have one coming up in September 25. My name is Bart Sharp, and this is Becoming Quantum Conscious, and you are on United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3, 103.5, excuse me. We're on Roku, the UPRN Talk Radio website at .com, X, YouTube, Facebook, and other internet platforms. So let's go into the galactic. What does that feel like to start to see that your life is opened up to something so big as that?
Well, we are galactic too, and
Of course.
we have galactic bloodlines and galactic connections. And these temples are just a gift to us, and we need to visit them. And they trigger healing and they activate us. And we remember who we are. We remember lives we had in these places, or where we feel very connected to the stone walls that we get to touch. The wonderful thing is, you can touch things in these temples.
Hmm.
You can touch the walls and you can touch Sekhmet statues, and they might grumble at you. The guards may grumble, but in fact, I'll tell you, Bart, recently Isis told me the next time I go to the temple, she said, "You go and do what you need to do in there."
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, what if the guards start questioning me?" He said, "You tell them that you are a priestess of Isis and this is your area, and to leave you alone." Doesn't that sound like Isis?
Well, from what I understand, a lot of people are seeing the people who have been there before come back, and they're always saying, "Welcome back." And there's a knowing that this is an Egyptian incarnate, so to speak. So I think there is this respect and reverence to all of what this is. And if you feel like you walk with that and you have that voice inside of you, I think it's understood by others who have an idea of what that's like.
I think if you have pure intentions and you want to do ceremony, um, the environment organizes themselves around you to make that happen.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
like in the Hathor temple when no one was in there when I was in there.
And my impression with that, because I've been told by a friend uh, that Hathor is basically the entire universe. It's all the star system. So this would be kind of a parallel with the concept of Sophia.
Yeah,
Uh,
Hathor is connected to Venus.
of course.
Yeah, so we're talking about the love priestesses of Venus.
But also with Venus is they carry the multitudes of possibilities that infinite embodiment can offer you. In other words, they take all the applications of what infinite is and try to carry that for us common folks to learn how to apply. Uh, so it is a multiplicity of all of these uh, possibilities.
We went to this amazing essential oil palace, is what it's called, but they make essential oils there. And the the owner is a gifted healer and intuitive. And and he looked at me and said, "You've been here to Egypt so many times." He's
Mm-hmm.
like, "I actually know you." And the beautiful thing about these essential oils, they're based on recipes that are carved into the walls of the Edfu temple.
Wow.
And when he told me that, I said, "Take my money." Seriously. And I have the oils. I bought the 7 chakras and frankincense, and they're amazing. And in the tour that I do in September, we're going to visit this place, and you can buy all the oils you want, and you cannot order these online. You have to go physically to this place and purchase them.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad that everything isn't accessible through the internet.
Right. One of the other things I love about the temples is they're so old. You could feel how ancient this place is. When I
Yeah,
went to the Abydos temple, they have an area behind it called the Assyrian, and it is buried in the ground. It's 50 feet below the ground. Now we weren't able to go in there because we needed, to make an appointment, and we didn't have that. But on the walls of one of the large blocks of is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, etching of the flower of life.
wow.
And I looked down in there and I said, "Oh my God, I need to go down there and touch those walls." So in September, we will have private access to this area.
Mm,
This is where we were told that Jesus was initiated in this place.
wow.
So Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene being a priestess of Isis and trained in Egypt, Mother Mary as well. This is a long lineage.
I believe that. And when you talk about that, it it's almost like the image I get is that to touch the flower of life there, it opens up what I call the alpha to omega circle of possibilities. It's, in other words, it is a reality that the possibility of being a whole person can emerge in you, or that path. It's probably a pretty fearless path because to be a whole person means you have to confront everything that's not whole in you, but something may get activated to drive you to be that kind of person and help you make it possible.
Another amazing place is Saqqara. And Saqqara, they already say, is the oldest pyramid, which is right. But when you go in there, it doesn't look anything like the other temples of Egypt.
Mm. How so?
It felt very Atlantean, if we can go back that far. And the walls, the stones that they use, and the columns, the walls are almost buffed, shiny,
Wow.
with the sheen to it. And I was like, what? What is this? Now, what did they use here? And then
And this
there's
is
a,
this is the inside of the temple,
this is
correct?
on the way to the Saqqara pyramid.
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
outside is what you're talking about.
Yes. Hmm. And I just know, and I just know this is so old and ancient. And I just think it's a gift to visit these kind of places.
Indeed. I mean, um, any any guesses that you would like to say is like how old is this place?
I would say I would say tens of thousands of years old, maybe 20,000 years old.
Hmm.
But it looks different. It feels different than the other temples. And those temples are old already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I
to
think
me, that's exciting. I love history and I love ancient civilizations and I love the mystery of it. And you're not going to get conventional answers from historians and archaeologists on what these places are.
no,
You have to go in there and feel what they are.
they are, and we they're saying maybe 15,000 years, but you know, it keeps getting older and older.
Even in America, they found footprints in White Sands National Park that are like 12,000 years old, 15,000 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they found teeth in Touchon, France, which is very close to where I live in southwest France, 300,000 years old. This has been pretty recent, within about 3 years.
Wow.
Uh, so it's really starting to open that idea that we may have had a few cultures come and go before we got to our culture, which is the Atlantean Egyptian sequence
And the proof is all around us.
all
And if you
around us.
don't believe it, go visit and see for yourself.
Yeah. But I think from what I'm gathering, because I love reading and hearing other people tell stories, and the impression I get is that when they built these things, it was encoded with beings from other worlds. It's connected to star systems, other galaxies. Um, the statues are still alive with that vibration, almost if they have still an identity with being Sekhmet or being Isis, that is still alive and everything there.
Yeah, we know that stones are recorders and crystals hold records. So in the Saqqara temple complex, there's a place called the Seraphim, and it's all underground, and it's these giant granite sarcophagus. I mean, huge. They say that because they when they were a bull worshiper, so they worship bulls. So they said these were for the bulls. They're not
Wow.
for the bulls. They were either healing chambers or maybe they took you back to Orion. Who knows what happens if you laid in them, but they're absolutely huge. Maybe they were made for the giants. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
along the walls of this tunnel, Bart, are all quartz crystals. If you shine your cell phone light on the walls, you can see all these tiny little crystals in the walls.
Wow. All magnifying it. That's quite of an intense experience.
So the way I would do the tour, um, we would do a lot how you do your tours, Bart, in France. We walk into these places, experience them, see what happens. and I'll give an opportunity for everybody to get together as a group every day to talk about what happened and how we felt about it and integrate those energies. Because when you're on a tour like this, a lot is happening.
It is. And sometimes you need to kind of get it defined by other people's stories because through their
Right.
stories, you understand yourself better.
And sometimes we need somebody else's perspective to
Yeah,
help us through it.
indeed.
So,
And you're also a kind of a conduit. You know, you are one of ISIS's girls, so to speak,
hmm
and it makes a difference.
yeah, I think I've spent many lives in these places.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and
So,
that's why I'm drawn there. And it's part of my spiritual journey now. My focus now is Egypt.
so how are you different that you returned to the States and Virginia, um, married, two kids, two teenage girls? You go back to the practical world. How are you different?
Uh, I released a lot of victimhood consciousness, which was wonderful. Um, I just feel happy and complete that I at least went to visit one time, but I'm going again. I'm probably more than that. So, and I would love to bring people with me and experience it for yourself.
Yeah, it's, and if you're out there and you think about some place and you yearn to be there, and yet you can find every reason not to, it might be a good idea to just say, I'm willing to let go of the obstacles and I'm willing to see how forces greater than my mind can help me make this happen. And you
Yeah,
just have a
you're
vulnerability with it.
right. And your soul is yearning for something. You should answer that yearning.
Yeah, and sometimes you may not go to Egypt or France or something like that, and you may do so, but when you open that type of box, something will happen. Uh, and you know, staying at home, at least in your own mind's eye, and staying confined is, um, it's I don't think it's good medicine for a lot of people.
Yeah, you don't really grow. You have to experience some discomfort. And
Yeah,
I will be honest with you. Egypt is uncomfortable. It's hot. The culture is very different from the American culture, and it's a lot. Egypt's a lot, but I will tell you that all the Egyptians welcomed us with open arms, and I felt safe there. A lot of people have issues, oh, it's not safe. The government takes tourism extremely seriously in Egypt. It's their bread and butter. They have guards everywhere. You're
wow,
safe.
that's cool. It's so neat to see something that has a lot of guidelines, guards, regulations, and yet it's highly transformative. Uh, Sometimes when you have a lot of tourists at a place, it kind of dilutes the power of it. But
But they
that
won't
doesn't
tell you
seem to be the question. That doesn't seem to be the situation here.
they won't tell you much about these places though. There's not a lot of like signs you can read, and
Mm.
it's almost I wonder if it's on purpose because you have to just go that there and figure it out yourself.
Or maybe you just have to experience it yourself.
Right.
Sometimes it's best to not know a lot about these things, but stay in tune with your heart, your body, and feel this experience. and be vulnerable with it and open to that mystery, um, and let it happen.
which is what I learned in France with you.
And if I was going, I'd be looking on the floor to see if I could find any type of rock that I could take home in the temples, because they would be charged with all of that energy, and you take them home and you meditate with them, and they always give you a reminder of the vibration. And that's what we really want to know is, how do you integrate that at so many levels in your life? So you have to keep remembering and revisiting, even if you're not there.
Right. I still
So,
have my rocks from France.
yeah, I do too. I meditate with, I have three of them that are my favorites. So we're coming to the end of the show, and I want to give call letters out and say goodbye to everybody. And while I'm doing that, I want you to think about what is what is your last message to give everybody about consciousness. And so you were with Tina Kinney Clarke of TinaKinneyClarke.com. That'd be KINNEYCLARKE. She is co-creator of Egyptian tours that are having a tour in September 2025, and author of Into the Tree, Journeying into the Spirit World. And you can find more about her at TinaKinneyClarke.com. My name is Bart Sharp, and this is Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 103.5 out of New Orleans. Also on Roku, X, YouTube, Facebook, and the UPRN Talk Radio website. What do you have to close with us, Tina?
How do we increase our consciousness?
That's a good one.
Consciousness is the awareness that you are a multidimensional being with many lifetimes and access to ancient wisdom. And once you realize this, you have no limitations, and the world and the galaxy and the universe will be your oyster.
That sounds like a pretty big concept. And I think you need to think big if you're going to create hugeness in your life.
But know that, like, you're a human on the planet with a soul, and that soul has needs and wants. And if you're yearning to go to a place, you need to answer your soul and say yes to that.
Yeah. Wherever that is, um, throw out your television, shut your computer down more often, and go out and see what the world has to offer to you.
Exactly. Whether it's France or Egypt or whatever location calls you.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in on Becoming Quantum Conscious, and we will see you next week with the Three Marys and Carolyn McGrath. Until then, best wishes for everybody, and thank you so much, Tina, for being on the show.
Thank you, Bart. It was a pleasure.
All right. Until then, we'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.